Well, there's little doubt that we've just witnessed an election budget. Could be coming up any old time now, with plenty of goodies across tax reform, spending and policy. But Morgan Stanley says that the federal budget is unlikely to kickstart property prices or buyer confidence.
Yeah, we've got property prices continuing to grind down, as they've been saying. And Anna Porter's from Suburbanite. She's here to look at the impact on the housing market. Buyers, investors, whoever you might be out there, there's something for everyone in the budget. What stands out to you from a property perspective, Anna?
So the first thing that stands out to me is the fact that they keep talking about returning to a surplus, and even though that might not have a direct impact on property, it does impact sentiment. So when people hear these positive things coming out of budgets or out of the economy in generally, sentiment catches on pretty quickly. The other thing that I think is a really interesting space with this is they haven't done anything radical. They haven't thrown a big grant out at first home buyers. They haven't thrown a big change in the policy space. What they've done is they've actually looked at stability. And stability, I think, is exactly what the property market needs right now. We don't need bells and whistles and the razzle-dazzle of something like that. The property market needs good stability, which comes through job creation and infrastructure, and a really interesting support package through that small business sector, which are a big part of the property market, small business owners. So I think there's some really interesting things coming out of that will look very stable, which is boring, but it's really important.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the access to credit factor. Obviously, that doesn't really come into play when we're talking about the federal budget. But as you say, they could have helped out certain parts of the market. It seems like they haven't really picked on first-home buyers or anyone like that. I mean, you talk a little bit about infrastructure, and I wonder how quickly those sorts of things start getting acted upon. You know, we hear about maybe a faster rail network going through certain parts of the country. Do you think that people act on those sorts of things pretty quickly and try to jump into those areas?
We get a lot of people that say, I'm land banking because I heard something's being built somewhere sometime in the next 35 years. Very speculative. But it certainly does, and I think what we're seeing out of this is some of the regional markets seem to be a big winner, which again will boost that sentiment around it as well. You did talk about access to finance, and there's one thing that I heard, there's a lot of information came up very quickly, but I heard them talking about a $2 billion finance sort of lending fund to support small business. And I think there's going to be a flow-on effect from that, because small business right now, if you want to grow your small business, you leverage against your home loan and your house funds it, right? When small business owners, really what they'd prefer to do is have access to better funding to grow their business and then be able to use their home loan to actually buy a bigger home, go and invest or do something more in the property space. And sometimes this becomes crippling when they're using basically their home loan becomes their overdraft facility for their business. If they can free up some funding and the devil's going to be in the detail here. They said something as simple as there'll be $2 billion dedicated to helping small business get funding. I mean, what does that tell us? But if the devil in the detail's right, I think there'll be a really interesting flow-on effect there, and that's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, so road and rail projects in terms of the infrastructure package worth about $100 billion. Yes. I think Shane, who we just spoke to from AMP Capital, is a little worried there wasn't enough stimulus in there. And although, as you said, it's good to... I just wonder what people are going to be clinging on to. Yes, we've got this projected surplus in terms of the confidence factor that you just mentioned. Yes, we've got the projected surplus back in the black. I see they're trying to get back in black trending on social media. People might have seen that story today.
Though, right?
Yeah, didn't quite get the coverage they were hoping for. Look, I think they're trying to get that side of it going, but from what Shane was saying, there's not quite enough in the near term to change. I'm thinking buyers going out in the market and thinking prices are still dropping. There's nothing going to change their minds about the fact that prices are dropping, loans are still hard to come by.
Prices are dropping in some states, though. They're
some
dropping
states,
in
of course.
some and definitely not in others. Well, the big ones, the powerhouses, right? So, look, there is certainly that. So they're talking about the fast rail going from Sydney to Wollongong, Brisbane to Sunshine Coast, Melbourne to Geelong, and a number of regional areas were listed. Couple that, especially in that regional space, with the upgrades to the regional hospitals was a big point. And then you throw in as well the drought package. I think regional Australia is going to be a winner out of this, and I think that is one that we should start to see. You know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel there. Even just having some promises made, I think, will be positive. And a lot of Australians, when it comes to property, get really speculative and get well ahead of themselves and start jumping into regional markets and buying well before they know enough information to do it properly.
Sure.
So I actually think that might be a positive thing for those markets. When it comes to the big markets like your Sydneys and your Melbournes, we're putting, a fast rail between Sydney and Wollongong, in years to come, not tomorrow,
Yeah.
Will that
and
be...
if this government is in power for like how many elections?
Yeah, so...
Will it be a game changer? Not today. I don't think it will be today.
Yeah, just on that point of sentiment and about, what happens next, we've got the budget reply coming up. So when it comes to sentiment, you've got this government talking about, you were saying it's all about stability, we're not going to, try anything crazy, we're not going to throw anything really wild at this situation. Then potentially you've got the opposition sticking to, quite significant changes that will affect the property market. How do you think property investors and owner-occupiers are likely to be looking towards the next election now?
So a property investor, potentially a small business owner or a household that's going to get their extra $1,000 back. And let's be honest, $1,000 a year is not going to turn you into a property investor or someone's going to upgrade your home loan by $500,000 overnight. But these people are going to go to their taxman, their accountant at the end of tax year, and with one government, they're going to get more money back through tax and still have negative gearing on the table. Or with the other government, potentially they're not going to get the extra tax back unless that's a policy that comes out, but they're also going to have negative gearing taken off the table, which means you get back more on this side and you potentially don't get back as much on this side. So there's going to be some decisions made around that because that is real money in real people's pockets at the end of every year. And that's a decision maker for people. We don't think about how does the budget affect everyone else. Let's be honest, people are selfish. They think, how's the budget going to affect me?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
how Australians think.
Sounds like you're going to get lots of calls tomorrow from people.
Yeah, look, definitely are.
You do get, you get that, right? You'd have to say not much in the housing front when it comes to the budget. I think there's $1.7 billion for affordable housing that was kind of repledged, but really few new measures. It's all about sentiment and
the aged care one I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So they've touched on aged care
just quickly because we've got to move on.
Yeah, very quickly. So aged care is a sector that ties up the housing market. A lot of old people live in houses, for lack of a better word, but a lot of our ageing population live in houses that they're tying up stock that's too big for their needs. This government has said they're going to put a lot of money into that, but they're focused on in-home care packages with rolling out about 10,000 new ones of those. They're not actually taking people out of their homes into aged care facilities because it's cheaper for them not to do that.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's not going to free up housing stock. So it's still going to create that supply and demand issue that we've had for a long time in the major capital cities. That hasn't been addressed. So I don't think that's going to change the supply and demand issue.
Interesting. Couple of issues interesting in there. Thank you so much, Anna Porter from Suburbanite.